Welcome to BAM, Badass Moms with Lori and Jenny. We are moms on a mission to share women's stories about life, fitness, aging, relationships, travel, and much more. Hello, friends, and thanks for listening. I just wanted to take a second to give you a quick reminder about subscribing to the show. If you have not already, just take a moment and do so. This will make sure that you never miss a daily bite or an upcoming episode. And in addition to that, if you have a few extra moments and like to drop us a review, we'd really appreciate it. And there's also a sponsor of the show located at the bottom of all of our episodes. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for being badass. Hello, friends, and thanks for joining us for another episode of the BAM with Lori and Jenny. Today, we have an awesome, amazing guest, Deb. Deb has a very inspiring story. We go down her path and background in education to transitioning to a freelance editor and health coach. We dive into her talking about the adoption of her two sons and navigating now the challenges of raising teenage boys. She also shares with us her courageous breast cancer journey from discovery to treatment. And just such a lovely guest. And we are so excited to dive deeper into Deb's life. Deb, thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jenny, do you want to tell our listeners how we kind of met Deb, and we'll go from there?
Yes. So Deb actually, Paula was on the show, several months ago. And Paula actually said to me, you have to meet Deb. You're going to love her. She'd be the perfect person to have on the show. And so I reached out. And if y'all remember, Paula is the one I stalked at the gym. So she's my gym friend. And I was like, okay, if Paula says that, yes, I'm going to reach out to her. So I reached out to Deb, and she was very gracious and said that she would be willing to join us. So we're super excited to have you here.
Yeah.
So Deb, tell us, you're a mom, you have two kiddos. Why don't you tell us what you do with your day to day, and then we'll kind of unravel the puzzle of how you got to where you are.
So currently I split my day-to-day, most of my days between two sort of part-time businesses, two of my own businesses. One is an editing business that I've had for, coming on 10 years now. So I have a freelance editing business. I'm a former English teacher, so I sort of transitioned to that after my kiddos were born. And I love doing that. I also, in the past year, have become a health partner for Body, the health and fitness platform that used to be called Beachbody, which I have used for years. And so now I am partnering with them and bringing people on to use those tools.
Awesome. So what led you down? Were you a writer? Let's kind of go down the path of how you became an editor, and what led you to kind of being able to have that as something you do now.
Yeah, I know the two things are very different, but that's my core, longest standing thread, I would say, from being an English major, getting my undergrad and graduate degree in English, becoming a high school English teacher, and also a college comp teacher. Mm-hmm. And then when we were sort of trying to grow our family, I took a leave of absence to kind of I taught high school English. I taught AP English, loved it, but sort of took a pause, and then we started down the adoption road and adopted our two kiddos. And after we did that, and we had two kiddos, I was teaching part-time for a local community college, both in person and online, and then eventually stopped. And after a few years of having toddlers, said, what's next? What can I do? And really took a journey to figure that out for myself and figure out some, what are those job, career path, surveys and books, and just kind of reflected on what would be good for me. And so editing became something that I realized would be a good fit for something I could do from home. I joined a wonderful writers group locally, an editors group globally that I'm a part of still. So it just eventually led into editing from home, editing as much or as little as I wanted. So it was a great fit.
So it's totally flexible.
Exactly.
And you have managed to keep that community intact then, since you've joined these like different groups that you've got other people that are doing similar work and that kind of thing?
Well, yeah. So I'm still part of the writers group, although not as active, but I love the writers group. It's a local writers group. And the editors group is all online, but do you mean those groups?
Yeah. So, I mean, going from, one of the things I was thinking is like going from, being in the classroom every day, and it's not like a work from home kind of job, right? Like you're surrounded by people and you have this community, and then you go into this world where it's you and your toddlers and your work. And so how do you like maintain that connection to, adults, where you can have adult conversations and, share ideas about work and collaborate?
Yeah. A lot of that was online through those writers and editors groups. I mean, I'm still in touch with some of my teacher colleagues as well. When I was a new mom, not a young mom, but a new mom, I think the biggest adult interaction for me became like MOPS groups and church groups, Bible study groups, but MOPS especially. That's where I met Paula originally. So I think of that too. Yeah, which was so
critical to just, I mean, I remember, Lori, you remember when you had Wyatt, like when I had my kids and I was like at home on maternity leave and I didn't have my work community, and
you start to lose your sanity.
Yeah. I was like, I've got to find other people that are going through what I'm going through so we can all like commiserate together, celebrate together, whatever.
So those adult conversations are nice to have when you're surrounded by little ones all day, right?
And at that time for me, I also remember and think about the other couple of groups that I had been involved with, one which was an infertility group of women, which was kind of overlapped with our adoption group of families. So our adoption group through our church before we even had our kiddos, but that kind of definitely stayed with us and still to this day. Those are people that we leaned on a lot. So
Deb, I have a question. So the two kiddos, I heard the word of adoption, right? And I think that's a very interesting path to go down. If you don't mind sharing how you kind of ended up adopting your kiddos. Did you adopt them at the same time? Did you adopt one and then a year later? And you said right now that your kids are 13 and 14 and you have two boys. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that experience.
That's a long journey, but not as long as for some. I mean, we started out on the infertility path or the fertility journey, and eventually pursued adoption. It was a wonderful experience. Both of our kiddos were born through private infant domestic adoption processes. So one in another state and one locally, both open adoptions, both wonderful birth families, and they're about 14 months apart. So the first process took about a year and a half, and then the second one about 6 months.
Oh, wow. So a lot.
So they're pretty close in age.
It's so funny because I hear so many horror stories about waiting for years to adopt. So to me, that sounds fast. It probably felt like forever, but to me, that sounds fast.
Yeah, it's all relative when you look back, and infertility is the same way. When you're every month feels like an eternity. And for us, it was a few years, a couple of years, I guess, only of infertility. But you're right; it's all kind of like warped time when you're in those both of those journeys, for sure.
Feels like forever, yeah.
So how are the boys together? So they obviously there's a little bit of an age gap, but being both adopted, are they very aware that they're adopted? I mean, how did you have those conversations with them, and then how do they? Act as siblings? Like, do they fight? Do they get along? Like, how is all that?
So we, as part of our adoption process and training, we had wonderful training through our agency, and we remember distinctly part of what you do is you as far as sharing their story, sharing that they were adopted. You share from the hospital. You share on the way home from the hospital. So there's no, I mean, we've had open adoptions and been in relationship with both birth families. So it's just been a constant conversation, which has been really good and healthy for the boys and helpful, I think. And as far as how they
well, they're 13 and 14, right? So I mean,
they are, as common as siblings can be. They are, they have being so close together, I think, can be hard because the older, it's harder for the older one to kind of like process this new creature in the house at that time. So, they've had their sibling rivalry over the years, like any siblings. They're now it's interesting because as teenagers, we're in the whole teenager realm now, and it feels like it. And it's fun because I used to teach high school, so I actually love it in a lot of ways. But they're very much into their own things, and so they don't come together and battle out. In fact, sometimes when they're together, they kind of roughhouse and they're silly teenagers in a way that's like, oh my gosh, but at least they're getting along.
Yeah.
Right. They're not fighting. They're just being normal.
They're not fighting. They're just going to be loud. And that's just completely normal and great. And it's them bonding. And we have one, you're not supposed to label your kids at all. But we have one who's very much into sports, team sports, and loves the team environment, thrives in it. He's a football player, basketball player. The other is into all the arts, all the arts, and really into them and really talented in that. So they don't have a lot of competing interests, which is in some ways nice because they're not competing.
Yeah.
And in other ways, they still have to find their common ground sometimes, which they do in normal, like teenage, Minecraft and
video games, even normal, right?
Eventually they'll find their common ground against you guys.
Yeah. There's that individuation and it's together but against.
It's so funny. My kids, they can be fighting. And my brother and I did the same thing, but they can be fighting, like battling. And then if one of us comes down on one of them, it's both of them against us, and it's super annoying as a parent. But my brother and I did the same thing. We could be beating the crap out of each other. And then all of a sudden it was like, we were on each other's side,
So the dynamics there are so interesting. And I remember as a teacher, when my 10th and 11th graders would complain about, their siblings, I just remember telling them, just wait till you're adults. I know. I just think living under the same roof with any other, except for pets, any other human is hard. And you need to find ways of, and so, because that happened with my sisters too. We were like you, we fought a lot and then we had to figure out how to be friends as adults. And it just became easier though with some distance, but anyway, so.
That's awesome.
And how many siblings do you have?
I have two. I have a twin sister and an older sister.
Oh, twin sister. I want to hear more about that too. So,
okay.
Are you guys close or, are you guys different? I'm always so infatuated by twins. I think it's just fraternal or whatever it be. I'm always just like, wow.
Yeah, it's fun. We are very, very close. We all are. I heard there's a Netflix show right now, by the way, about a twin study. That reminds me, I need to watch it. It's supposed to be great. Eat What You Are, I think it's called. Anyway, something about twins.
I watched it.
Is it?
Yeah. I watched it. So here, I'm going to give you my commentary on it because I felt like it was a little bit bait and switch, honestly. I thought it was going to be about twins and how their bodies responded to different things and what their health journey. It very quickly turned into a anti any kind of animal product. So they started showing slaughterhouses and I was like, this is not what it's supposed to be. So it was interesting because I love watching that stuff. So I was so excited. And then I started watching it and it was pretty much like a proponent of a plant-based diet, which is fine, but that's not what I was thinking. It was like a forks over knives type of a show instead of more focusing on the twins. So it was interesting.
I think I've heard that. And so maybe for me, knowing that will help just kind of understand that. And, but yeah, I mean, we were told we were fraternal as babies because we had 2 placentas. And then years later, I have another good friend who the same exact thing happened to her and her twin. She lives near me, and her twin lives near my sister, funny enough. So, but we were told we were fraternal, 2 placentas. 20 years later, they discovered, hey, maybe 2 placentas could be identical because if the egg splits early enough, then the placenta would split too, and so you'd have 2 placentas. They just assumed that 2, and we are very, very much alike. Like we look alike. People confuse us. We confuse ourselves sometimes. So now we say, after that long story, we say we're identical.
And you have another sister?
We have an older sister.
So what was that dynamic like? Was it like the 2 of you against your older sister, or like how did 3 is tricky anyway, but then you've got identical twins. So how was that?
I mean, it was interesting because we all played soccer together in high school. We all fought like siblings, do. And I'm sure it wasn't easy to have a pair of twins come along behind you at 2 years old. Yeah. And I know it wasn't easy for my mom, but so we would fight, but then, man, if there was any threat to us, she was our biggest protector. So I remember, and she I don't know. We all played soccer in high school together, and she was a star, and she was, and she that was a really cool experience to kind of be brought us. I don't know. She just cheered us on, I think, in that way.
Yeah. So I have a question back to the twin thing. So you always hear these stories like of twins possibly like feeling like their twins' pain, or like emotionally, like being able to kind of like telepathically, like, I don't know, feel their I mean, has anything weird ever happened to you like that? Do you feel there's some extra connection you have, or is that just, who knows?
We've never, I don't think we've ever had that experience. We've heard of that, but no, not for us.
Okay.
I mean, we're very close, and we wear similar things, and we show up in similar outfits and stuff like that.
Is your body type the same? Like you said, you're very similar looking.
Yes, or they were. But it's been interesting because our paths our medical and our sort of pregnancy paths, all of that has, I think, made us more different in at this point, because she ended up having 2 babies. I, went through infertility and then breast cancer and hysterectomy, like I shared with you guys last time we chatted. So all of that,
things.
What's interesting though, is we get similar migraine symptoms. We ever since college or soon after, we get migraines where, like, with the classic blind spot aura.
Yeah, I get those. Horrible. They're horrible.
Yeah. And I mean, so we will text each other and just text aura, because and it's been happening a lot lately for me. And I'm like, hormones or something. But anyway,
for sure.
So that's a similar pattern that hopefully will go away.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. But you're right. Maybe it's hormones, right? I mean, I feel like I actually started getting migraines as a child, and I had no idea what they were. And they used to scare me. I used to go to the nurse's office. I mean, I was like 5 or 6. And, I've had these phases within my life where sometimes they were worse. Sometimes they were better. Luckily, knock on wood, I get them occasionally, but it's usually around that hormonal time that I do get them. And they are, like if I'm somewhere, I have to pull over and I have to wait until I can see again. And they're really pretty horrible. So, yeah.
I have one of my friends, she had debilitating migraines for years, like couldn't work, like terrible. And menopause, they stopped after she finished menopause.
Oh, interesting.
So she has like a whole new life now. I mean, she can go hiking, she can, which is amazing. I mean, the fact that that had to happen in the first place is awful. But maybe they'll clear up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, migraines I've done all kinds of things to try to figure it out and study them a little bit. Because there's different kinds. Ours aren't really debilitating, although if I don't take Advil, I mean, I can generally take Advil, but sometimes if I take Advil, then it comes back the next day, and I don't know. So, and there's usually like a cocktail of triggers for each person, and it's mysterious and it's frustrating, and they change over the course of life, I think. And hormones are definitely an issue for me, I've noticed in the past 10 or 15 years in terms of, and sun glare, but
dehydration. I always can nail that one for not drinking enough water.
The weather, literally, like the weather changing, the barometric pressure.
Life. Yeah. Stress.
Postmenopause. I'm hoping for the postmenopause shift for sure.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about, like, you just we obviously talked to you beforehand and you told us about your breast cancer journey, but do you mind kind of going into that a little bit? Like, when did that happen? How did you discover it? Take us through that a little bit.
Yeah. So in December of 2019, I had a mammogram scheduled December 10th, I think it was. And the week before noticed a lump in my right breast and thought, oh, that's weird. Glad I'm going next week. So I went, and I didn't really say anything. I don't think I said anything. I was at a new doctor, new clinic, new machines, and they wanted me to come back. I got a call. They wanted me to come back a few weeks later, which turned out to be Christmas Eve, for like a diagnostic mammogram, which many women have to do. And, it's disconcerting, but oftentimes it's just because we have really dense breast tissue and it's hard to see. They need to look up closer in a spot. I had a diagnostic mammogram plus ultrasound scheduled. During that appointment, after the first part, after the diagnostic mammogram, the radiologist said, we don't see anything. You should be good to go. And all dressed and ready to go. I said, to the tech, what about this thing I'm feeling?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I didn't realize you had something where you could talk to the radiologist. So I did. So in the middle of that, because he wasn't going to do the ultrasound. They were just going to kind of send me on my way.
Good for you for saying something.
I
Totally.
had a friend who'd had breast cancer the week before, just kind of give me that advice to pursue as much information until I was comfortable. Mm-hmm. And now I pass that on to everybody because it saved me in that moment. Because that's what I was thinking about was, I don't know. I don't know that they know about this, or it's kind of, you're kind of distracted or something. I don't know if I forgot to tell them. I don't know what happened, but did the ultrasound, got back undressed, did the ultrasound, and they thought, yeah, maybe, because, different tests, the mammogram, the diagnostic, the diagnostic mammogram is different. The ultrasound and MRI, they all search in different ways. Mm-hmm. So one's not necessarily better than the other or more comprehensive than the other, is what I learned. And so the ultrasound kind of enabled him to see something that maybe the mammogram had not. So from there, I was scheduled for a biopsy on January 13th. And then the next day, got the call that I had breast cancer. I had, the name of it. Invasive ductal.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So stage 1, they assumed at that time. They don't know the exact stage, but it was like slow growing, low grade is what they called it at the time. They don't know until further pathology results exactly what they're dealing with, which was hard for me to kind of like have to wait to know. Like, I wanted to know right then and there, what am I going to have to do? What does this mean? And that some of that didn't come for weeks in terms of decisions. But so that that call, I got 15 minutes later, I got a call from my wonderful PCP at the time, she had seen it, had seen the results, called me right away. And then I was scheduled for brunch with Paula half an hour later. So that was
wow. So was she like your first person that you were like, this just happened?
First person I saw, absolutely, because my husband wasn't even home. I called him on the way, called my sister. Just kind of panicked. Yeah. Mad, very mad, scared, mad,
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the journey after you found out? Then what was your course of treatment?
I met with 2 breast surgeons. I had the choice to do a double mastectomy or a lumpectomy. The second surgeon, who was highly recommended, both were, but the second one kind of just led me and my husband to kind of understand that the double mastectomy would be a good choice because of symmetry results not being guaranteed, and really the peace of mind that would come. It was the hardest decision.
Oh, sure.
Because I wish that I had just been told, you have to do this or you have to do that, because I'm not a decisive person. I'm an Enneagram 6, and I am an over worrier, overthinker. So that was very, very hard. And ultimately, so we met with the plastic surgeon after that. He was wonderful through the whole process. I mean, to this day, when I go to follow-ups, I love going to his office, and they're wonderful. But so I had great care. I had my first surgery a month later on February 18th of 2020. And then, so a month before COVID, almost a month before we shut down. And so then I had to keep going. I had reconstruction. So that was the whole process with expanders, and just that whole process is pretty miserable, but got through it and had my second surgery in May of 2020. And then a third surgery the January after.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then did you have to have like chemo and radiation, or did the mastectomy take care of everything?
So no, I didn't have to have radiation because in my surgery, the lymph nodes were clear. And because I had usually the protocol is, depending on the type of cancer, everybody's journey is a little bit different. But for mine, with hormone positive cancer, stage 1, I was given the choice of lumpectomy plus radiation or a double mastectomy. So you sort of either do one or the other. Had the lymph nodes not been clear, I would have had to have had radiation. And then as far as chemo, the decision is based on the oncotype test, which is a test of the tissue from your surgery and whether chemo would benefit or not, essentially.
Gotcha.
Or would outweigh the risks. So my oncologist decided no on that, although it was more gray area than I would have liked. But all that was really confusing too. And
you realize it's like, you think science, black, white, right? And you realize there's so much like interpretation and art and all of, it's not what you think it is. And it would be so much easier if they're like, do this or this. These are your 2 options, but it's like, there's 50 options.
Yeah. I'm normally like such a gray area. I don't think in black and white. I think of all the nuances, and I love that. But with this, as an indecisive sort of, an emotional wreck at the time, I needed decisions, but that was part of the journey, and part of my growth was having to figure some of that stuff out and talk to friends, talk to doctors, and I don't know. Yeah. But got through it.
Yeah. Good. It's tough. I feel, I was talking to Jenny about this. I'm kind of in a, I think, and we all are as women, breast cancer is one of those things that more people than you would have ever thought actually have it or are going through it. And, recently in my life, I've had some, friends, that weren't able to necessarily beat it and recently passed away due to it. And just been a really hard, realization that, it's so empowering when you see people that are able to win the battle, so I think it's really empowering, and it just the support that we all come together as women to really, help people through those tough times. I think is, you probably realize that too, the support that came out of everywhere to really be there for you. So I think that's, amazing.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about fitness side of things. I always love fitness, obviously. And so how you like to, obviously this is another part-time gig that you do, but for the fitness component, what drew you into fitness and how you now really enjoy part of that community, but more so just for yourself and what you like to do in your spare time?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've ever in my adult life not been somebody who is active and works out. I was a runner for a lot of years. My twin Angie and I have always been runners as well. In college, I mean, we played sports in high school, and then in college, struggled with some like over exercising at one point, but just have always loved working out, but especially running. And I think when the kids were little, I found Beachbody workouts. I found 21 Day Fix, especially, but also my husband and I did P90X. We did, T25. We have all those DVDs, which a lot of people do. And 21 Day Fix is actually the one that I did the most. That was with Autumn Calabrese, and it's actually having its 10-year anniversary this next month, which is exciting. But so I loved it, and I got great results from it. Super quick workouts. So that
was this like VHS? I love going back to like these were like I remember like having a VHS tape of like the Tybo, like my girlfriends and I would put it in and do it like VHS, like legit, I mean, that I just feel like it's so funny to see the evolution.
Yeah, I know. I probably have some workout videos on VHS, but they're mostly, I think, DVD.
I had Cindy Crawford. Who did the Buns of Steel?
I think it was
Denise Austin.
Oh, I remember that one.
No, it wasn't Denise Austin. I had Buns of Steel, but yeah, they were VHS. I know it's just, it's come a long way.
Fast forward, rewind, you got it like.
Yeah.
I did a lot of Jillian Michaels.
Yeah.
Too. I still have hers. Yeah. So, and then eventually when Beachbody became an interactive, online platform, I just transitioned to that. And I used to go to the gym for like the rec center for a class that I loved every now and then, but eventually I could never I say this a lot, I could never transition to like a full-time gym membership because it was just so much more expensive. Yeah. And this was just so convenient. And I've just done it like in my basement, in my living room. I've just, sometimes more consistently than others. And like in the summer, I'll run more. I run less now because of my joints and just wanting to do more strength training now.
I hear you. We've had that conversation.
It's really important. I heard a really great podcast about it the other day, and how it benefits your whole life, your longevity. I mean, you guys know this stuff, but it was fascinating. So I love that, and I love the feeling of it. Mm-hmm. So I've just done it for years. I've done many of their programs. And even their nutrition plans have been effective for me. And so last year, the breast cancer journey kind of, I think, led me into just feeling, I don't know, bolder or something. Yeah. COVID too, like it just has changed me in a lot of ways.
I was going to ask if it changed your perspective, because you hear so many stories about people who are like, you know what? I decided life is too short, or whatever, like family is the most important thing, or something changes in them significantly.
Yeah.
Did you feel that?
I have felt that from a few different, like COVID, breast cancer, also my hysterectomy. Mm-hmm. Also had a few bouts of basal cell skin cancer, which it's not life-threatening, and it's not, but it's 3 more surgeries. I'm about to have another one. I'm about to have my 3rd. So it's like all these things. I was like, what is happening? And because I'd never been in the hospital before I'd never been under anesthesia before my breast cancer surgery. And so yeah, I went through a lot medically, and I'm like, but I had been eating better than I ever had. I'd been sort of making improvements over the years generally. But anyway, so the hysterectomy especially was not especially also, I think just made me realize, man, my body is not the same. It's not going to be the same. I can't take hormones. Some people can, and they're great, but I can't take them. So I got to figure out how to, and I still struggle with migraines and, hot flashes, but they're milder, So becoming a partner last year, it was like, I had thought about it before, only because I had done these programs for years. And every now and then I would think I could do that. I could, it's coaching, but it's not like a fitness trainer. It's not like I have to know stuff.
Yeah.
You're supporting, you're motivating, you're a cheerleader in a lot of ways, correct? Like, you're there for people.
And I was a cheerleader in high school too. So that I think
it's all coming together.
Full circle.
And that was just it. It's like, I knew people. So I knew people struggling with menopause symptoms.
Yeah.
Again, not an expert on menopause, nor will I ever be, because it's just too much. The hormone, like, I'll learn, and we're coming out with a hormone health program at Beachbody this year, which is awesome, but people are studying it. I'm going to learn from them. Mm-hmm. But even like coming back from breast cancer surgery and reconstruction, like I've talked about this too, where push-ups are different. Like I can't. And so I had to sort of work through that emotionally and realize, I didn't want to succumb to, I can't do that. I can't do this. Mm-hmm. I'm going to figure out what I can do. And then I realized, I'm sure there's people out there struggling with overcoming medical or physical, trials that, want the future to look a little different, So
yeah, so you're able to take all your experience, your love, your passion, and find a community where you really were able to thrive, and also have the balance of doing, what we talked about earlier, being an editor, and now being able to kind of, have this other part-time, position with a community empowerment involving fitness, and really tying those two together and creating a balance. I think that a lot of us strive to have, where, I always think of, making the donuts, and that's a job that, somebody's got to do, but I can't imagine doing that myself, where some people are programmed to do kind of positions like that, where a lot of us, I think, and a lot of us that tend to be entrepreneurs and, have multiple careers that we're always juggling, are those people that are the dreamers and the true doers. And, it's finding a balance of how we can live our life and empower others. And I find it fascinating that there are so many of us out there, right?
Yeah. It's fun. You also said something that really struck me, and Lori and I actually just talked about this earlier this week or last week, but basically you're focusing on the things you can do. So there's certain things like my push-ups are different. Okay. So appreciate the ones you can do, not like don't mourn the ones that you can't do anymore or whatever. But it sounds like your mindset is, you said a couple of things, actually. You also said, like, what's next for me, which I think is just a cool way to look at your life. Not like I don't like what I'm doing now, but like thinking there's so much more out there. Right. Mm-hmm. So, it's pretty cool how it's all just come together.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I've thought a lot about in the last couple of years is, and I've heard it like from the trainers on Body when during their workouts and stuff, talking about, don't be ashamed to be a beginner, don't be ashamed to be doing something for the first time or something new. And I think turning 50 also, like, and I think this is true, I've sensed from a lot of friends that have turned 50. It's like, it just you kind of throw your hands up in the air and go, okay, I don't care anymore what people think. I don't care anymore what was. I'm going to focus on, my sister had been playing tennis for a long time. And she wanted me to play with her for years. She's like, come play on our team. Oh my gosh, talk about a humbling beginner experience. So I've enjoyed it, especially, but because my twin is so much better because she's been playing for so long, and she's really, really good. And it's like, I'm not. So that's, hard, but, and and yet I didn't want to give in to like, this is too hard, I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with like learning. I've never considered myself an entrepreneur. Like you mentioned that before, Lori, and it's like, so as a body partner, or even as an editing business owner, like I don't consider myself, I love both. And you're right, it's a great balance for me in my day. I've had to learn how to balance my time better, but I'm learning so much, especially with the training and development and support that I get at Body on my team about leadership and about things I've never really thought about before. So it's, and why not, right? Why not do something new at 52? My mom, she'll say she started her career at 50. She did start her career as a middle school counselor at 50. And why not?
That's awesome.
It's a great career. It gave her so much joy and purpose. So
I think it's good for our kids to see too, us being a beginner, and I told Lori the other day, when one of the hardest things for me to do was become a spin instructor, which I know sounds insane, but you're in front of everybody. And I was like worried about, I want everybody to have fun. I want the music. And then you don't want to hurt anybody. Like all these things are going through your mind, and there's a little bit of you that's performing, right? And when you're up there, and I mean, when I first started as a spin instructor, it would take me like a week to get everything together, get the class organized so that I felt comfortable, the practice. And now you'd say like, okay, can you teach a class? And I can jump up and do it. But it's good for us to remember, like we can still learn new things no matter what age. And it's good for our kids to see us in the struggle a little bit because they usually don't.
Yeah. And I just thought of something. This is what I would wish to say to people considering like starting a fitness program or starting a nutrition program or starting anything new. Like, cause I think when you were talking about like learning to be a spin instructor, I thought to myself that I would say, oh, I could never do that. But why not? Like, why?
Maybe I can do that. Or maybe, know.
I think
the voice in our head.
We stop with that. So people might look at what I'm doing and go, well, you're there or whatever. You have this consistency. And I do because I've been doing it for years. And they might say, well, I could never do that. Or I could never, I think people get stuck there and they don't challenge that. Because I still find myself saying that.
You at 30 probably would have said to yourself, I could never do like what you're doing right now. Your 30-year-old self probably would have said, I could never do that.
Exactly.
But it's so, and we also think, again, like going back to our thought process, like I look at people that have been, I look at Lori who had been doing cycling for years, and I'm comparing myself as a beginner to somebody that's been doing it for, however many years. And your journey is your own and your learning curve is your own, and it takes time.
Right. And I've also heard a lot along those lines. Why not me? It's like we discount ourselves and we exclude ourselves before we even start.
Yeah.
And I'm still challenging myself to if I'm looking like at somebody else, not with envy necessarily, but admiring somebody else, say, in whatever sphere it might be. I'm trying to say, why not me? And maybe I don't want that, but it doesn't. But we need to stop excluding ourselves from.
But knowing it's possible, right? Like knowing and giving yourself the props that I could do that if I chose to make that my path. And I think that as we get older, it's wonderful that we start to think like that, because when we're younger, I think there is a lot of walls up that are like, oh, you can't do that, or you're not certified to do that, or you didn't go down that educational path. And it's like, but I'm motivated and I want to do this and I want to learn. And I want to, I always think the most interesting thing, and I think the job market and careers right now is, it's so based on a piece of paper and all these check marks. If you're qualified to do something, to even like get to a real life person to then express who you are and what you're capable of. Right. So it's just a different world, and it's navigating around those things, but knowing we're all capable of doing what we really want to do.
Yeah. And that belief in self is hard for a lot of us, especially if we've gone through trials or we're in them. So yeah, I mean, I just want people to think differently about themselves sometimes.
I think there's a lot of deprogramming that has to happen. And, we've done what we were supposed to do, and we've been in this box, for however many years. And I've said to myself, I turn myself down more than anybody else has ever said no to me, right? Like I say no to myself however many times a day. And I never challenged that voice until recently. Then I'm like what you said, well, why can't I do that? I could do that. And so I think that there's a lot of deprogramming that has to happen, but just being aware of it, you can get started on that.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that we tell ourselves no, turn more than anybody else. And I have to tell this story because I've told it. I think I shared it with you guys before, but I mean, sometimes we need other people in our corner too, to start that process for us and with us, because I think about who I am. My diagnosis day anniversary was Sunday, and I had forgotten about it. I don't anticipate it, remember it, but I remembered it at the beginning of church service. And I just the whole service, of course, the whole sermon was about me, and it spoke to me about, God's plans for our lives and how we don't know them in the moment. And we can sometimes look back or wish we could go back. And, oh man, I was just bawling. And then I think, because I was thinking too about, and I've told this so many times, that I'll never forget when I did go and see Paula for that brunch. I mean, it was an hour and a half or less after I had gotten that call, just panicked. And I remember telling her, I don't think I can do this. I remember the emotion of it. So I'm emotional now. And I remember her, because she's always been such a wonderful mentor and cheerleader and belief giver, right? She gives me belief before I have it. So I just remember her looking back at me and saying, yes, you can. I don't remember if those were her exact words, but I just remember the intent was just so sure. And she was right, and
you believed it in that very moment. And I mean, you yourself said, wow, she told me, yes, I can. And yes, I can. Right. It was all the empowerment that you needed in that really tough moment, I'm sure, to just help you. So Deb, I just want to, we have a few minutes left, and I really want to touch on, because you have such a, an interesting journey. You've overcome so much. What are you looking forward to? I love to ask this question because I feel like it's a good way to kind of end our conversations. What's coming up that you're really excited about?
That's a great question. It's a great question, because I think I get caught up in the to-dos of every day.
Yeah.
A lot of us, right? I just got to focus on this goal or that thing or those tasks. I'm looking forward to what will come with my team on Body. It's really fun. And I learned back before I became an editor that I love being in collaboration. And so editing is also collaborative, even though a lot of my work is alone, but I'm still working with an author. So all of that, the collaboration is so amazing. And I love, there's so many things to look forward to on our Body team, as a team. But I think that what comes to mind, I'll just say it, maybe this isn't the answer you're looking for, but I look forward to my kids' next several years. I don't always feel like I'm as present with them as I should be, because I'm so busy with some of the other things, but so this is a good reminder, because I really do look forward to I love what they're doing now, and I love watching them and all their things. And I just know that the next few years are going to fly by.
Yeah.
So it's a reminder to me, even your question, to be present during these things that I'm looking forward to, their high school years.
Yeah. So awesome. And I know Jenny can definitely relate, as, her daughter is a senior in high school, and just those years, and I have a little one, but I also have a stepson that's in high school, and it's just in a blink of an eye, right? Yeah. Just enjoying every single moment, even when there are moments where you're go through this moment, but enjoying those moments, right? Because there are moments when they're not there with you every day. And it's so fun to watch them grow up.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Deb, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to chat with you. I really enjoyed hearing your story. I hope your confidence and your ability to say, yes, I can, has really like fueled our listeners to realize that everybody can truly do what they want to do when they want to do it. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to Paula for the introduction. We're so grateful. This has just been amazing. So thank you.
Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep being you and keep being badass.